From MZ Studios in Dallas, Texas, you're listening to the Tennis Revolution podcast.
You don't know how glad I am to be back behind this microphone as opposed to another microphone we were both behind recently. And just a little, spoiler, it ain't got nothing to do with you. Yeah. No, I'm happy with you.
Well, you like your comfort zone in here, your little cave in here. You have all the control.
Woo-wee. Welcome back to the Tennis Revolution podcast, not blog.
No one has any idea what we're talking about.
Yeah, Corey and I recently experimented with...
Please don't say it like that.
That's all. Just that's all.
Please, nobody record that clip.
All right.
Right where we left off.
We tested the waters.
Well, I don't know if that's any better, but all right. We really got into some things. We couldn't say anything like this yesterday.
No, we went to a local country club in DFW, and there was a tournament going on, just an amateur local type tournament, and we did the unthinkable. We were behind the microphone.
No, we didn't play.
No, yeah, that would be unbelievable, not unthinkable. We broadcast a match like.
It was like Summerall and Madden.
Exactly. They both don't do it anymore, right?
I don't think either of them are alive.
What? John Madden's alive? Are you?
No, that's right. John Madden is alive. Is he alive? Okay,
yes.
He is alive.
He makes shoes now.
And video games still.
You didn't get the shoe reference?
Madden shoe. Oh, Steve Madden. Yeah.
Is that him? Steve Madden? I didn't know. I just knew Madden. I figured.
No, Pat Summerall is not alive, unfortunately.
No, Pat Summerall is not with us.
I would take John Madden in the broadcast booth now in any football game.
This podcast over me? This podcast? Boom. Yeah, he's 82.
There you go.
He was born in Austin.
Nice.
Minnesota.
You're starting to sound like our show yesterday.
He was born in Austin, Minnesota. Yeah, so we broadcast a local match, which, the opportunity, I appreciate the opportunity from Tex-Mex Productions, as they're called. That's not any kind of, epithet. That's the actual name of the company. And, they are trying to find that niche of live streaming matches, within a certain region, but amateur, so.
Right. I think they're doing a little bit of soccer, too, or they were at one time.
Unbelievable.
But yes, you can go to Bent Tree Tennis on Facebook and find that if you're dying to see us in action.
Let me tell you something.
If you don't want to.
It was a lot like, here's what's funny. It was a lot like, not the experience. The experience in and of itself was wonderful. Not you, but Craig Bell, the team there at Tex-Mex Productions, the facility, the club's a beautiful club. But yeah, the outcome, I think, from my part, reminded me of something I also did this weekend. Saturday, before we were out there, I just was going back and trying to arrange all the audio from this podcast, get it organized,
right.
Clean it up a bit, and listen to one of the first episodes that's the first episode that's available now on our current format. And it was back in 2016.
We were both young.
Oh, no,
kids.
You weren't involved. You were not involved.
Well, but we were young kids is what I was saying.
It was bad. It was bad. And like that podcast yesterday was bad.
Well, and it's
you were pretty good. It was mine. It was me.
It's like those celebrity audition tapes they have, when somebody goes and tries out for something and then they later become famous. You got to start somewhere.
Yeah. The most famous ones are probably all the Star Wars, back in the 70s,
right.
75, 76, when they were bringing in, all the different would-be Han Solos.
Right.
And then they bring in, the actual the guy that got the role eventually, which you didn't know at the time,
right?
And they all sucked. It's like, wait a second, how are any of these people?
Right.
And you even know the guy that got it, Harrison Ford. You're watching his audition, and you're like, this is awful.
Right.
How did he become Han Solo? They didn't even have CGI back then. This is horrific.
So what you're saying is they haven't found the right person for this show yet, but they're still looking for him.
Correct. I'm the Tom Selleck of that would have. Did he audition?
I was going to say, everybody, when you mention Tom Selleck now, it's always about Friends. People always think you're talking about Friends. His most famous role, yet he was a guest star.
Magnum P.I., baby. Magnum P.I.
I guess that's true. And now there's a new version of that, too. So
that's awful. Yeah. Everything new is awful. So anybody that's under the age of 25, your life is measurably more terrible because all you get are retreads of what we got to watch for the first time.
Well, and I hate to admit this, but we have not had an awful Australian Open. It's been amazing.
We wanted to, didn't we? So what happened? They at the last minute changed
to my draw,
to 4 seedings. Yeah. I'll tell you what, we have had a humdinger of a tournament thus far, and I'll tell you this: you came in here with one of the most ridiculous requests I can think of. We can't talk about the Federer match. We can't talk about the Federer match.
I said we could if something dramatic happened.
Yeah, that was a little passive aggressive though. I know you were.
So I drafted. We do our fantasy tennis draft, as you tease me about often, and I had the 9th pick out of 10, which is typically not a winning scenario. And I drafted Tsitsipas with my first pick, knowing I was going out on a limb, and he probably would take a while to do anything. And
is this a by hand type situation? It's not like Yahoo has.
No one has one.
So you have to do it by hand,
right? And obviously Djokovic, Federer, Nadal, Serena, Halep, they're all gone. So I'm not going to act like I chose him over anybody else. But
looks like a genius today.
Of the top 8 players that were available or that were gone, I took him at number 9. So which he's the 14th ranked player in the world, so that was going out on a limb to some degree.
Yeah.
And I did not expect him to beat Federer. I'm not saying that by any means.
Did anybody pick Sock when he was 8 in the world?
Well, that was at the end of the year, and the next year, I don't know if anybody drafted him this year or not. We do 50 men, so I don't think he would have been drafted in the top 50.
Wow.
So I don't think he was
8 in the world and wasn't one of the top 50.
This year. He was last year when he was ranked in the top 10.
So this doesn't take into account doubles, apparently.
No, it's not a pure draft like it should be. It should factor everything
exactly.
in. But no, going back to my criteria.
Raven Clausen, my first pick.
Going back to my criteria of the best,
I have a win over him.
That's
why I picked him.
But the things that make a slam great, I think we've had all 3.
It was a walkover.
Yeah, well.
Sorry, I'm listening.
Still counts in the record book.
Every time I say something, I feel that I feel compelled to add another tidbit to make it more true than it originally was. So carry on.
It still counts in the record book.
I do have a win. Yeah, that's fair.
But no, I think we've had a good mix of Americans doing well, which obviously benefits us, and Australians doing well, which benefits the home country, which we say always adds more attention to the tournament and just more excitement.
Yeah, and on both counts, I think it's not. This is almost a prediction. It's not just fluky on either side. So Ashe Party is doing well for Australia.
Right.
That's not fluky. She's been an up-and-comer, and she's still coming up. And, Danielle Collins is another example. Up-and-comer, maybe a little quicker now than Ashe Party, but still, for America, she's making some noise.
Yeah, I mean, isn't it weird to see Barty as a top 16 seed? Because I don't feel like she's really been a contender ever.
Right.
But you feel like she is now based on how she's played and who she's beaten. And obviously having Wozniacki out of that section helps. And she's already beaten Sharapova, the one who beat Wozniacki. So it's kind of hers to lose, at least for the next round or two.
Yeah. Hey, but we don't care about women's tennis here. Let's talk about men. No, I'm kidding. I will say for once, this doggone men's draw is equal to the task in competing as far as interest and all the rest of it compared to the women's.
Well, and this is one of those weird tournaments where I feel like the lower players are getting more attention than top players. Like Serena, Djokovic, and Nadal have almost been an afterthought in this tournament, even though partly because they've been winning so easily and quickly, they don't get as much airtime. And so I feel like we're more focused on the Tsitsipas and the Collins and Tiafoe and those people instead of the people that are probably going to win the tournament.
Well, we might have started the trend, but I think everybody's coming on board that this next-gen group, the lost generation of tennis, really is worthless. And the next gen, a la Tsitsipas, Khachanov, et cetera, Tiafoe, that's the next gen. And so...
Yeah, they've completely surpassed them in one tournament.
I was going to say, if Australia is any indication, then I am vindicated.
Yeah,
we are vindicated.
You didn't expect to be validated this soon, and it's already happening.
Although, I mean, listen, it's unheard of for the men to compete this late age-wise.
Right.
So every day that they get older, I don't know if it's want or seems for me, I mean, but it seems that at any moment the cliff is right there, and they're just going to physically, just because of age, are just going to fall off the cliff. At some point, it's got to stop.
But I think your whole point is that, and we saw it with Berdych against Nadal, is those people haven't been able to push them over the cliff.
How good was that match? It wasn't.
and
fourth round, 0-1 in the first two sets.
And I love this tournament throughout. But again, we had Tiafoe, potentially the best American we've had for the last 10 years. I don't think he is, but this tournament he is. They were showing that Nadal match the whole time.
Right.
It was 6-0, 5-1. Tiafoe had just called the doctor, lost the third set, and they didn't
Probably
show
not
it.
The doctor.
No, he did. They said he called the doctor.
What?
Which was so weird, I thought. So to me, that was interesting. They did not go back to that match until 5-4 in the fourth. And the first 9 games of set they didn't show.
And two reasons that the split screen, obviously we've talked about.
Yeah.
On previous eps here, but first of all, it's not good to watch.
No,
because you can't see. It's hard to pay attention, but you can't hear either.
Right.
And something like that, you need to be in it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
and I hate DirecTV doesn't give me any money, and I hate to continue to sell them, but that's one huge benefit of DirecTV is you can go to channel 704.
Right.
And now they still only have like 4 other courts because one of them it drives me insane. it's a DirecTV simulcast of ESPN2. Who doesn't have ESPN2 that has the tennis channel and also I mean, come on.
The DirecTV 5-court package. Yeah, well, and to me, the split screen is almost like more insulting because it's like, okay, this match isn't important enough to take us away from the Nadal Berdych match, but we'll show you both.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't understand the philosophy there. And then, I mean, I just couldn't figure that out. I get that it's Nadal and maybe people turn it on and see Nadal playing and they're interested, but if I turned that match on and saw the score, I would turn it off immediately.
Right.
If I was a casual tennis fan. I mean, or unless I just thought, man, I have to see how he's beating him this badly. But if I knew that Tiafoe was going on, I'd like to see the ratings from that DirecTV of how often people are watching the side courts versus the main one. I mean, ESPN's got to have access to those numbers, I would think.
Right.
But they don't seem to utilize it.
Yeah.
They did the same with the Serena match, too, though.
Listen, here's the deal. It's 2019. No, that's all. Just stating the year. No. But there could be a way. No. There is a way to live, words. I don't know words. Good thing I'm on a podcast.
Live track.
Well, that the ESPN can live track interest in whatever match.
Yeah.
They could put up a 4 screen and Nadal up, 6-0, 5-1.
Right.
Tiafoe calling the doctor. That was Australian, by the way. You didn't know I was bilingual. And then, whoever else is playing the other 2 matches and put 1 through 4, go to the app, go to ESPN app and pick which one you want.
Right.
Boom, ESPN2, here it is. And quit all this nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that was the biggest story up to that point. That was before Collins had just destroyed Kerber, which was shocking to me.
Let me tell you, well, that was Kerber just was not in it.
and partly because of the coverage, I only saw the very end of it. Again, they didn't show, and it'd be hypocritical for me to say they should have shown it because it was 6-0, 6-2. But to me, that was different. When the top player's down big, that needs to be shown.
Right. That is more compelling than the top player being up a lot again, as usual.
But to me, those are the two matches that were the most interesting yesterday. Obviously, before the Tsitsipas Federer, and they spent the whole time showing Nadal and Burdick, which I didn't understand.
Well, and here's the thing: this is something I think needs to happen. Is that if the one thing that, first of all, demand is going to make that possible to switch from a Nadal blowout or Serena, either way, on the women or the men's side, if the favorite is dominating, there's no reason to watch. So, number one is demand. So if they can figure out how to do that digitally, I think it's super easy, I would imagine.
Right.
I couldn't do it easily, but smart people could. And the other thing is the crews on the court. So the commentating crews on the court need to make it compelling enough for a reason so they know, hey, the national broadcast in the U.S. just switched over to us.
Right.
We're not on channel 700 and whatever. So they just switched over. So now let's talk about why we're watching this and not that. But they're hamstrung. They can't talk about, Nadal's, it's a blowout. Burdick is part of, the same group that can't beat anybody.
They have to talk about what can he do to bring it back, or
nothing.
Right.
No, he can go over there,
search for that
with his racket and hold it like an axe and hit Nadal in his neck as hard as he can. That's his only chance. Although the third set was tighter, but it still doesn't matter.
To me, that a third set in a match where someone's up 2-0 should almost never be shown. Almost never be shown.
Right. If you win the third, you're down 2-0 to nothing. Sorry, soccer. And you win the third, that means nothing. You can still lose the match in the next set.
And I thought they learned, because I was actually really impressed early in the week because Federer was playing, and I don't remember which round it was, but they did not show hardly any of his match, and I was shocked because there was some really dramatic match going on a different court. And they showed that throughout, and I don't remember. They
felt guilty because he was playing during the day, and he's not. It was
Federer's day match.
That's why he's not in the tournament anymore.
And he played, and I couldn't believe they weren't showing it. I was like, we're actually getting to watch somebody besides Federer when he's killing a guy. Like usually they show that no matter what to the end. And so I thought, okay, man, maybe they're kind of figuring out that they can't hang on to Federer at all forever. And who knows? It may have been Djokovic, which is would make sense. It's number one in the world, but it was just nice to not have to sit through an hour and 45-minute beatdown. So it's the same frustrations we've always had. But
so here's what Nadal looks like so far: straight sets, straight sets, straight sets, straight sets. Now he had a tiebreaker in the Burdick match,
which was up when he was up 2-0. So
yep, and a 7-5 set against Duckworth,
which was a match that he had no chance to lose.
And he's first match of the tournament.
Well, and he played 3 Australians first round, first 3 rounds, which is kind of a weird, luck of the draw. But so he hasn't played anybody strong until Burdick, who really is on a comeback. But Burdick rolled through his previous matches.
I was going to say, he's on the comeback, but obviously he's physically well enough to make it, to the 4th round.
Yeah, perennial.
He beat Schwartzman for Pete's sake.
That's what I mean, and perennial top 10. So he's just part of that era, that the lost gen, as you said, that they're just not.
Yeah.
I don't see any window they've got at this point because
we got next gen, next gen. I think that gen is the never gen.
Well, the only person I see from that generation to me that could still, not based on this tournament, but that could still win a slam or two is Thiem. He's the only person that I see from that what would that be, like 24 to 28 age, that has a chance. And that's only probably because of the French. Anybody else, I just don't see it.
By the way, I don't know who said it, and I think they were talking about Zverev, but they said something about all his shot making. He'd be a good doubles player.
Really?
And I did one of those where you hit your hand on your forehead and say, "What?" Because his volleys are so horrific, it's not even funny.
Well, and even on top of that, I read, I think it was on the cover of Tennis Magazine, they had, let me just ask you, you may have seen it already, so you know the answer, but going into 2019, if you had 4 players that you could put on the cover of Tennis Magazine, 2 men, 2 women, who would it be?
You mean right now?
Yeah, like going into this year before anything in Australia happened.
Well, men would have to be Djokovic.
Right.
I mean, he came back and dominated. You'd have to have Serena.
Right.
Are they in bikinis? If they are, then it's Verdasco.
Those 2 were there.
All right. And then I'm
trying to think if I remember the third one. Or the fourth one, I mean.
So then the second one on the men, I mean, who did they put? Did they put Nadal?
No, they put Zverev.
Oh, my.
And they said, and I think Zverev was actually the headline, and it said, get to know your next number 1 or something. And I was.
Were they telling Zverev that? Get to know your next number 1?
I think Halep was maybe the 4th, but I don't know how you could think that after his Grand Slam results. And obviously he's playing well here and it's whatever, but it's just I don't understand how you can act like he's a sure thing to be the next number 1.
Well, the upside is in every Grand Slam he's got no points to defend. I mean, the only person that has less points to defend is Jack Sock.
Right. Which isn't helping.
Exactly. If you're
in an Australian wild card.
Hey, best doubles player in the history of the game.
I hope it's him and his partner. I don't know if they're both still in versus the Bryans. I know the Bryans are still in, but that would be a great.
That would be fun. And the Bryans just work them.
But yeah, I just don't understand. Like to me, Zverev, Djokovic, and Serena have kind of been non-topics in this tournament, which is kind of interesting to me. Because there's been so many other storylines that were interesting. Starting with the Murray is what kind of started us off.
Yeah, and that's not a real story.
I know.
That's a gossip type. Everybody's happy because he acquitted himself. In the stiff upper lip kind of British way. It's like, hey, you really represented. You didn't quit. You fought hard. You made it exciting, and you're done forever. Maybe
that was the kind of match I want every Grand Slam to start with. 2 top players playing each other, and when I say top, I mean top 20 playing each other. Because that I felt like got the tournament off to a rolling start. But again, that was by luck. That wasn't because of the system. Right,
because a former number 1 player in the world happens to be injured for the last year and a half or 2 years and comes back. And
he could have played some qualifier or wild card, and then it would have been nothing.
Well, he might have won if that were the case, which would have been unfortunate because it wouldn't. Well, not just because it wouldn't have been real.
Yeah,
I don't want somebody to win a round for sentimentality. I want everybody in the draw to really not have a chance to win the whole thing is not a right way to characterize it because obviously that's not the case. But if they did win all 7 matches, that they could actually finish them.
Right.
Whereas he was just a placeholder. What are you going to do?
So what was your most shocking result from week 1?
Well, on the men's side, I would have to say it's hard to say it's shocking because I keep wanting it to happen.
Right.
But the next genner, Tsitsipas beating Federer.
And see, I can't say it's shocking because I picked him, but it is still shocking.
It's shocking in the sense that finally my prediction is coming true.
And like I said, I don't discount it by the fact that Federer's older because he's still rolling over everyone else.
Yeah,
so I think that's more of a product of Tsitsipas than it is a Federer.
Right. Somebody on the old email or something. I don't know where it came. I don't know where these things.
Blog.
Everything. Yeah, from the blog. Everything comes to my phone. And so it comes up, I just hit things. So I don't know. All I know is it might as well be from Apple for all I know. Right. I think they sent it to the company and the company sent it because it's all on my phone. I don't know where it all comes from, but it might have been an email or it might have been from our website, the submission form that gets automatically converted to an email. That's where it came from. Just got to think for a second.
There you go.
And they were saying that Djokovic has really only beaten Nadal and Federer outside of their prime. Now, first of all, I don't think that's the case.
It's not at all.
At all. Second of all, how are you not saying right now is their part of their prime?
Right.
They're the top 3 in the world.
No, that's what everybody loves to say.
Their age is what you're telling me. But I'm telling you, they're 1, 2, and 3 in the world.
Yeah, how is that not the problem?
Have been for 15 years, it seems like.
And by the way, Djokovic beat Nadal at the French Open semis, 5, 6, 7 years ago. Beat Federer 5, 6, 7 years ago in multiple slams. They also piled up wins on Djokovic when he was 17, 18, 19, 20.
Right.
So they didn't play him in his prime either.
Why do we know so much?
But yeah, I mean, when they retire, we'll know exactly what their prime is. Maybe Federer loses, never wins another slam, and loses the rest of the year, doesn't win one tournament.
That's a good point,
so we
because
can say he's out of his prime this year.
Yeah.
But you can't say he was out of his prime last year when he won 2 slams. Any year you win a slam, you're in your prime.
Yeah, that to me, yeah, exactly. So anywho.
And he spent part of the year at number 1 in the world, so he's not in his prime. What is that? That defines our argument even more.
Right.
If he's not in his prime and he's number 1 in the world, what does that tell you?
Right. What is a win? I don't want a win-loss index. What does that even mean?
I don't know what that means either. Were you trying to look up Djokovic head-to-head?
Yes.
Well, I know he's got a winning record against both, so I guess that's what they're referencing. Us talking about. And yeah, I don't.
So what was your biggest shock then? So I agree with you. I agree with you from the standpoint that it's not shocking. Like, how could this ever happen? It's not like I beat Federer,
right?
But I guess more finally,
right?
Somebody finally,
Well, and for me on the men's, so you did your men's one. I'll do my men's one. To me, it's Tiafoe, and to me, Tiafoe beating Anderson is not a shock. It's because it's one match. But to do that and then back it up with 2 more matches, that's the shock to me.
Right.
So I would have expected him to lose to Seppi or Dimitrov after that Anderson win. And I wouldn't have criticized him for it. I would just say, okay, he got a big win and then he had a letdown. The fact that he was able to beat 3, top 40 players in slams in long, difficult matches was really impressive, regardless of what happens in the next round.
Right. Yeah.
So that to me was shocking because I didn't think he'd ever be this good, to be honest. And I didn't think he'd be this good this early.
Him taking his shirt off and doing the LeBron was more shocking to me than anything.
Well, and then this is maybe going to sound bad, but I wanted that post-match interview to be so much better.
Yeah.
And same with Danielle Collins, by the way. She came off to me as a total bitch. I'll just say it.
Wow.
And I thought that was your opportunity to get throngs of fans for both of them.
You cannot be serious.
And
I am taken aback.
They just didn't do it. And they even Mary Jo Fernandez after, she said, well, you can tell Danielle Collins is confident. I'm like, yeah
she meant the same thing you just said.
She did.
She just can't say it on national TV. Luckily, nobody cares about our podcast. Incidentally, Roger Federer, the first time they met was in Monte Carlo. And Roger won in 6-3, 2-6, 6-3. Identical score again.
So what year was that?
That was 06. So
they had to have played before that.
Roger beat him twice in 06.
That's the first 2 times.
Beat him twice in 07. So he's up 4-0.
Right.
On Novak.
And what does Novak got to be?
Immediately.
19, 20 then?
He turned pro in 03.
Yeah, so it's amazing they didn't play.
Well, but where was Federer by then? He was already threatening for Grand Slams. Djokovic turned pro in 03.
So he had to start in challengers and all that.
Yeah. And so that's not a huge...
But didn't Djokovic win the Australian in like 05? I know he won one and then didn't win any for a few years.
Yeah, he beat Tsonga.
Yeah.
But still, Roger's up 4-0 on him out of the gate. You can't tell me Roger's not in his prime.
Right.
Definitely his prime. He goes up 4-0 in 06 and 07, and that's when it starts to change. Novak beats him in Canada, and then Roger beats him, then Novak, then Roger, then Novak, then Roger, Novak. Roger, so now it's been going back and forth. So there's no doubt that it's been pretty even Steven, except for right at the beginning. And now, as of late, obviously, Djokovic has had the upper hand. I mean, because Roger turned pro in 98.
I saw
5 years.
Same year Tsitsipas was born.
And he's 6 years older than Djokovic. Yeah. So it's only fair that they're obviously going to turn pro about that time apart. So,
and I think it'd be different if Roger was like we talked about, floundering on the tour now, and was 30s and 40s in the rankings, and then
well, put it this way: even if right now is not his prime,
right? He
was certainly in his prime when Djokovic was winning,
right?
And to be fair, the first, So anyway, yes, of course, I'm right.
To say most of his wins are when Federer was not in his prime is pretty ridiculous,
right? So certainly some were, obviously, but not enough to say it's not indicative of. And again, the fact is he's top 3 in the world, and he won 2 Grand Slams last year.
Right.
Unbelievable.
And Nadal, I'm sure they played even earlier. And Nadal went pro, a lot younger. So again, he was playing people when he was 16, 17, 18 on the tour.
So anyway, sorry. I just had that email. So your shock is Tiafoe, and of course you cheated and used multiple matches to.
Well, to me, it was a shock that he kept doing it. Like, I accept in tennis that.
Well, which one's more shocking then? The second one?
The most shocking is him beating Dimitrov, in my opinion. But again, Dimitrov is so.
Exactly. I mean, that's. First of all, Dimitrov is next gen.
Well,
so
I guess my shock is Tiafoe being in the quarters.
All right.
That would be my shock.
Right.
But we had Sangren in the semis last
beating
year.
Beating Anderson is a big deal. I think that's a bigger deal than beating Dimitrov.
No, totally.
Well, and obviously Anderson's a 5 seed.
But if he played Dimitrov in round 2 and Anderson in round 4, he's not winning that. I don't think. But yeah, I mean, it's so crazy to remember, because I don't even remember us talking about Sangren in the semis last year. But I don't think any of us thought Sangren making the semis was like an ascent or was going to be a sign of things to come. He had a favorable draw, and he played well. He kind of played much higher than his normal level that week.
Well, but he's been.
Tiafoe's been on a continuous rise, and he's so young.
I mean, can he take Nadal out?
No, I think that's going to be
just a beating.
It is. I like the fact that he was, acted like he was excited to play him, and I'm sure he is excited to play him. But even if he was physically 100%. Which he won't be after that much tennis. Nobody is after a set and a half against Nadal. And Nadal just looks unbeatable right now. I would pick Nadal to win the tournament today if I had to.
Right.
So I think for him, it's got to be, he's got to jump on him early, which is anytime you play Nadal.
Right. All right, so now here's I don't know what you're going to pick at all. So let me just throw it out there. One of the same question, but on the women's side, is Sharapova beating Wozniacki shocking to you?
It was.
Is that the most shocking?
That wasn't the most. It seems cheap to pick this because it's kind of obvious. To me, the most shocking was the score of Collins over Kerber. Beating Kerber. Maybe not shocking, but 0-2. I mean, when's the time?
I would go the other way. The reason it's not shocking is because Kerber played like crap. No, she did. Right. I mean,
you have to play like crap to lose 0-2. It
was horrific. Not necessarily.
Right.
I mean,
and see, I didn't get the luxury of seeing the whole. I only saw about the last 3 games.
Yeah.
And then it was Collins was blasting every ball, and Kerber was being overpowered, the part that didn't make sense about that, what I agree with you about, is that's her whole game. She wants the opponent to blast balls. So that could tell me she wasn't on.
If she was, at a better level and Collins beat her, I'd be more shocked if it was 4-4.
Right.
And Collins won. Then I'd be shocked. I'm not shocked when a player just goes completely out of sorts. And this is something I talked about with that guest that took your place, sat in for you. She sort of disagreed with me at first, And I think it's because I'm an idiot in terms of the way I frame the argument overall in terms of women have to deal with more, from an emotional standpoint, just physiologically. And so you see a little more of players taking walkabouts, as it were.
Well, but to me, like the way I look at it is going into that match, that was the most shocking outcome. So watching it, it's not shocking because you're seeing it happen. Right. But I mean, he's going into it.
You click on the
there's
draw.
No way I could have thought that.
You see that score, and you're like, whoa, how did that happen? Then you go to the match, you watch, and you're like, oh, well, that makes sense.
Well, that plus the fact that she had never won a Grand Slam match going into this.
Yeah.
So you're talking about somebody who's never won a Grand Slam match beating the number 2 player in the world 0-2.
I guess that's why it's not shocking from my standpoint is because I watched how Kerber played, and I've seen on more than one occasion top women's players go away in terms of their emotional control.
Well, Sharapova lost 9 games in a row in her match.
Yes, that was not good.
And then almost won the match.
And again, emotional control is not a term I use referring only to women's tennis. It's because I break the game down into 3 parts: physical, mental, which is strategy. So physical, obviously, is your condition, but also your technique, your strokes. The physical, can, like me, my strokes are beautiful. Condition, not so much. But then you have the mental, which is your strategy.
Right.
How you manage different shots, what you're trying to do strategically against the person, and strengths and weaknesses, all the game plan, all that kind of stuff. Emotions are how you handle the pressure.
And that the one thing I did like about the Collins post-match is I truly believe that she strategizes for every opponent, which to me sounds silly, but I think there's a lot of players who don't do that. They go in there with a plan of how they play, and they're going to just play that way and react. But, I mean, she said, they said some question that they're never going to answer truthfully, but they said something like, what do you think about playing your next opponent? And she said, well, I've got to go back and sit with my coach and see what our plan is. And to me, it was just interesting to see that there's actually going to be a different plan. And I could see a different plan in this match as opposed to when I've seen her play before, which I thought the fact that she has that versatility was a compliment.
I would imagine that if a player has their coach on site, or even not, because, telephones work these days, that if she's got her coach on site or can contact her coach, I think that's probably going on more than you think. I think the difference is looking at which player does what and what their options are.
Right. Well, what I mean is
Hollop can't do a whole lot more than she's doing, but Sharapova can. Right. Sharapova can hit big, she can grind a little bit, and she can come to the net.
Right. But wasn't Nadal ever changing his strategy based on who he's playing, or even
he doesn't need to.
That's what I mean. I think because she's the underrated player.
I think people get caught up way too much in that idea that I really have got to come up with some secret plan on how to beat this player.
Play the other person's weaknesses.
Or you just look at it and say, hey, I am better, and so now the way to manage this match is I have to maintain my level. I don't care what the other side of the net's doing. And in college tennis, to me, that's really the biggest thing because you're playing so many different people so many times, and then they all graduate and disappear.
Right.
And so some coaches, I've seen some coaches with strategy, with like notes on players and all that. I think that's, who knows? I mean, listen, it may work. I don't do that.
I don't think it's happening, like you said, on the pro as much. Unless you're, like you said, the lower ranked player, because then you feel like you might have to.
Right.
Like, I don't think, Djokovic is going to a match and saying, I've analyzed, and if I go after his back, I think he just thinks I'm going to rally and the other guy's going to miss, and I'm going to move him around. And, I think there's maybe nuances they go in with. And even if you see the commentators, I forget what match it was, but I think it was the Karlovic Nishikori match, which was incredible. And they said Karlovic's strategy was to play short points and attack the return. I'm like,
really?
You could pick 100 different opponents,
really, and
that would be his same strategy.
Right.
So that's what I mean. I thought it was interesting that she was acting like there was going to be a whole different strategy for the next match, which I think is probably doesn't happen that often.
Right. Oh, all right.
Did you get to watch that match, by the way?
Which one?
Karlovic Nishikori.
I did not, actually.
It was the 5th set tiebreak, which I have to admit I've liked. Didn't think I would, but I have.
Right. Well, let's talk about that match and the tiebreak when we come back.
It's time to join the revolution. Go to our website, tennisrevolutionpodcast.com, to get the latest episodes, email us your questions and comments, or give us show ideas.
All right, so we are back, by the way, in case you didn't know. So, yeah, I saw pieces and parts of that match.
It was a match I was really excited about, and my wife was like, why do you want to watch? Because we watched the first set or two, and she was like, why do you want to watch that?
Well, because if you know what you're looking for, I mean, what better matchup than opposites?
That's exactly what I would
First
thought.
of all, opposites physically, opposites game style-wise, probably personality-wise are pretty closed off and quiet. But other than that, so that's a perfect match to watch. Would you rather watch Isner, and Opelka?
Oh my gosh!
Right.
Yeah, I didn't want to see any of that, and it ended just like I predicted.
Exactly.
But I always like to see how players react to Karlovic or Isner, and Nishikori did well the first couple sets. Then all of a sudden what inevitably happens against those guys, his serve started to falter, ironically, against someone who has no return game.
Right.
So I don't know if you know what happened, but he was at 5-all in the third set, so he'd already won the first two. Nishikori gets broken at love.
Wow.
5-all in the fourth set, Nishikori gets broken at love.
And then bang, bang, bang,
so he
bang.
lost 7-5, 7-5, and then the fourth they went all the way on serve to 6-all and went to the tiebreak. And he was up 7-4, and he was up 7-4 serving, I think. And it got to 7-all. Yeah. So he got broken twice in a row in the tiebreak.
Ouch.
And then he won 10. So he still won, but it was crazy because you feel like all you have to do is make your first serve, and that's it.
Nah, it would appear so, but
no, I know, but
listen, these guys can hit shots. I mean, anybody, even like our lumbering friend John Isner. I mean, if you let that thing sit right there, he will punish that forehand. I mean, he's a huge. They're huge human beings. I mean, so it's like
the game he won. One of those games he won at love, I think he hit 3 return winners.
Yeah.
So it just and I think he does kind of that Sampras mentality of he's not going to do that every game, but then he waits till a 5-all, 4-all, and then does it.
Just waits for it. So that was one good match that kind of hurt our draw. Yeah,
right.
So this tournament ended up starting out being better or
right.
as good as what we thought a 4-seeded tournament would lend itself to.
Right.
Men and women.
Yeah, I don't know if there's been as many competitive matches in the women's, but you also had some weird seeding in the women's too, with players coming back.
Yeah. Sharapova is a weird one. Hey, I think Sharapova is very, very close to being back.
I know, and I thought this was going to be her last year, and now I don't know what to think after.
Why? Why would it be when you
potentially? It wouldn't be after this. That's what I mean.
Potentially, Williams could be retiring soon.
Right. I still think she's looking for that one good run, and then she could just say that was it. I wanted to prove I could still do it, and that was it.
Who, Sharapova?
Sharapova.
Oh, okay.
Like she's looking for that one semifinal final run.
No, if she won one, no, I don't think she's going to quit at all.
No?
I think she's bored selling candy. And she's not. Nobody's taking pictures of her on the beach much anymore.
Right.
So yeah, that was two good matches she played, and the Ashe Party match was a little streaky,
right?
But it was fun.
When I'm curious, I didn't hear the post match, but I would be curious to know what her reasoning behind what happened in that match was, because I haven't seen a player go off that badly for that long in a long time.
Kerber did it for an entire match.
Well, that's what I mean, but that makes more sense.
Go away,
right? In a match,
playing well and then not playing well.
But yeah, I think we kind of got the best mix of, like I said, we had the local players, the Americans, all the top players are still in for the most part. So what I hope doesn't happen in week 2 is we see, Nadal rolls through everybody, Djokovic rolls through everybody, and it's a Nadal Djokovic final, and then Serena rolls through everybody, and Halep rolls through everybody, and it's Serena Halep. I hope we continue to see kind of the converse players playing each other. I was real excited about Anna Samova, and then she went away weekly in the fourth round.
And that's all right. She's such a youngster that one exciting or two exciting rounds or whatever it was is good enough.
Well, it kind of made me laugh because they said, I can't remember the last time a teenager. I'm like, yeah, I can. Cece Bellis and Melanie Udan, and you guys act like they're the next number ones in the world.
Right.
And then we never. So I want to jump up and down about her, but I'm not quite yet just because of those times I've got my hopes up before.
Well, so the tie break, now in Australia, they play what's called a match tie break in America, we call it. And it's you play to 10, first 10 by 2. I mean, it's no different than a regular 12-point, best of 12-point tiebreak to 7, except you have 3 added points to get to. That's really what it is. It's just a little longer.
And aren't you tired of hearing, by the way, that, it just gives you a little bit more margin for error, having those 3. You really think 3 points gives anybody any more?
I mean, do the math. It does, technically.
It does, but I mean.
But it doesn't do enough to matter.
I don't think anybody's saying it's okay if I get down 5-2 in this.
Put it this way.
I'm not trying.
I'm indifferent. If you want to keep it, keep it. Put them all at 10. I don't care. That's all I want is all 4. Really, I wouldn't mind I don't know. I think it's goofy to have it different between the first, second, third, fourth sets in the third set, in the fifth or third set, depending on men or women. So really, if you're going to make it, if that's the best way to decide a tie between 2 players, then it should be in every set.
Right.
Or if not, go to all 7-point.
Well, and I know for a fact.
Which is actually called 12-point, by the way.
I know for a fact that I watched a match and a player got to 7 and thought they had won.
Nice.
And they had to keep going. So I think that's the problem.
Did they end up winning anyway?
They did win, yeah. But I think that's the problem with having 4 different formats.
Right.
Is you've got to, they already have enough to worry about. They shouldn't worry about the format of the match going in. So, I mean.
I will say this. I don't care what format you use as long as it's not no tiebreak. Because that's the worst.
Well, you know that I like that. So
that's the worst.
So if you had to rank, this is going to be, you're not going to even care about doing this, but I'm going to ask you.
All 5 or all 3 sets for the men, best of 12.
No, rank all 4 formats right now, what your preference
Number
is.
1, all 5 sets, the 7-point tiebreak is number 1.
Okay, like the U.S. Open.
U.S. Open. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Number 2 would be the Australian Open. Okay. You're talking about the 4 Grand Slams, ranked their dumb formats.
Yeah.
So number 2 would be the Australian, where you have 4 out of the 5 as a regular tiebreak.
Right.
And the 5th set or the 3rd set on the women is to 10. That's number 2.
Right.
Whew.
It's got to be Wimbledon because you said you hate playing the whole set out.
It's got to be. Well, but it's so stupid. It's such a dumb idea. It's so dumb.
Right.
Because they didn't actually make a decision.
Right.
They said, well,
we're not going to have 70-68 again, but we'll stop at 9-9.
Yeah. It's so dumb.
But here's the
it's 12-12, or do they back it down to 9-9?
Is it 12-12?
I thought it was 12-12. That's so stupid.
But here's the thing that I can't wait for. There's no player that wins a match 13-12 that's going to do any better in the next round than if they'd have won it 26-24.
Right.
That's not going to make a difference. It's so like you said, it was like they changed it without changing it.
But I do think the idea of not having the 68-70 games, no chance on having that is the best.
Right.
At minimum.
But we say that, yet that was the biggest, most attention Wimbledon's gotten in the last 20 years for anything.
Yeah, well, they could play naked and they would get attention, but we don't think that should
doesn't
be
mean
a thing.
It's good, right?
I mean, it would be. Let's be honest. On the men's.
But I just think it's funny that the one most notable event they've had in the last 20 years, they're getting rid of.
Yeah, but it was notable, like
for
a serial killer is
right.
notable. I mean, it's not good. It's just notable.
Yeah. But that will never happen again anyway because you've got the roofs now. So it's like they're getting rid of something.
No, the score will still happen,
right,
which is absurd.
But I don't think that score would have happened if it was one day because somebody would have collapsed.
That's a good point.
That's what I mean. If it's all in one day.
I don't want to kill anybody, though, either.
Of course, and they got that stupid curfew, too. So I guess it still could happen.
Right. So anyway, I guess Wimbledon has to because at least we're not going to have a 70-68 finish in games in a fifth set.
I think this is going to sound terrible. My masochistic reason for saying this, but I think those players deserve to be punished for not being able to break an opponent.
To not be able to make one stinking return.
So if you can't break someone, you deserve to get punished in the next round and get crushed. So I don't know. I don't think. I'm just saying.
That's a great point, to be honest with you.
I've said this before. Imagine if we get somebody, he's been trained since he was 4, and he hits 175-mile-an-hour serve. He could win. He could make it to the finals of a Grand Slam just by winning tiebreaks. Is that what we want? Yeah. He cannot do that.
Why not?
If he has to break, that will not. He will never make it to a Grand Slam final. Meaning that's the only part of his game. He's got some crazy grip he's created where he can serve it and nobody can return it no matter what.
Or he's 7'2".
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Yeah, whatever the thing is.
Why isn't Dirk Nowitzki on the Pro Tour?
But that would just be.
He played tennis at a good level and he's 7 feet, whatever.
Yeah, I think this actually helps those people. And I would rather have a format that hurts them than helps them. I don't want to reward somebody for having one shot.
So you would like to see all 4 Grand Slams go to no tiebreak in the 5th?
Yes.
But why not? So that's the
that is the argument you always use that I can't really.
And that's the only
refute.
reason. That's the only reason.
Is why change the rule in one set that you have in every other set?
No. To stop a 7'2" guy from winning when he has no other skill but serving.
I wouldn't say that's the only reason. I still think that...
Number one reason?
I mean, the number one reason is related to that, which is that you should have to break the person's serve to win.
I see.
Which you don't right now because you can win 7-6, 7-6, 7-6.
Right.
Yeah, I just think that's a part of the game that... No different than win by 2. You should have to win by 2 to win.
Well, you do. 2 points.
Right.
We've determined within 12 games in that set, you're equal. And we've also determined over 5 sets that you're equal. Even if you won the first 2 6-0 and lost the second 2 7-6, for all intents and purposes, it's equal.
Right.
You both have 2 sets apiece. And then the 5th set, you did it again, 6-all. So you're equal. We just got to figure it out. Who's better?
Yeah.
Flip of a coin. Who's better?
Did you hear the long, the little round table they had with all 8 commentators? Coaching versus non-coaching. I already know your stance.
First of all, that was horrendous. It was just not. At one point,
there was no structure in it whatsoever.
Well, at one point, Cliff Drysdale mimicked what looked to be the chicken dance, where he was like, he had both hands up to either side of him, and he was like, closing his thumb to his fingers, like, yapping.
Right.
The talking sign. It looks like dun 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 dun. Chicken dance is very big down here.
They like to do that. They do that about once or twice a slam, it seems like.
Just everybody was talking, and Cliff Drysdale was like, shut up.
And they kept introducing, they tried to introduce like 4 topics in like 5 minutes, and it was like they didn't even give people a chance to talk about the first topic, and then they tried to go on to the next one.
They just need to focus on the matches at hand, and if they want real in-depth conversation, where do they go? Right here.
The Tennis Revolution.
To our blog.
Well, what annoys me, too, is they'll do all that, and then they'll go out in the court, and it'll be 5-all in the set. I'm like, we were listening to you, and we could have been watching this set that's gone to 5-all. I haven't figured out their system. Well,
their system is they're main court centric.
Right.
So as soon as that match is over and they're getting it all ready for the changeover for the next two people, nothing else is going on. The main court's done. So who cares about, 2 top 20 players battling out somewhere else?
Well, and what's funny is, the main court there is not always the match that they want to show because a lot of those Australians got that main court.
Yeah.
And they don't want to show that here because there was one night where I was like, why are we not watching Rod Laver? And then I realized there was some Australian playing there that they assumed we wouldn't care about. And so they were showing the second court and didn't even hardly reference the fact that there was a match going on Laver. So now that always changes the second week because there's only so many Australians left. I think there's only one left, which is Party. But still, to have one left, for them is, I'm sure they're happy. We've got more Americans than we normally have.
Yes. And here's the thing. The TV coverage is just a symptom of what everything else. It's like Federer playing all-night matches, literally all-night matches last year. There's this compensation is not the right word, but, just fawning over these top players.
Right.
The seeding already gives them advantage, which we talked about.
Yeah.
That's number one. Now you have some tournaments, just kowtowing to these players, getting bigger than the game. And it drives me insane.
Well, they already have the financial advantage of being able to afford more coaching. And
staying where they want.
Right.
Coming in weeks in advance to get ready for,
they get all access to all the practice courts, Rod Laver Arena.
Exactly.
They're not letting Tiafoe go practice at Rod Laver Arena.
Or maybe, but the lower players certainly not.
Right.
Even lower, maybe, who knows. But anyway, it drives me crazy. When you get to a tournament, everything should be exactly the same for every player within the confines of the actual tournament.
Right.
So, in other words, once you step onto the grounds of the Australian Open, you are a nameless, faceless player. You should have a number on your back, and nobody should know who you are in terms of how you're treated.
And we haven't talked about that much, and that is one thing that really has upset me about Grand Slam tennis is that there's a lot of favoritism going on.
Now, to me, if you're the Australian Open and you put all of the Australians on the main courts, the reason you do that is because they hold more seats and more people are going to want to come see their countrymen. I've got no problem with that because that in and of itself is not an unfair advantage.
Right.
Now, what is an unfair advantage, which I heard, where did I hear this? It might have been on the tennis podcast, our arch nemesis.
The other blog.
The other blog. It might have, where they talked, I can't remember. You know what? It might have been on the Body Serve podcast, actually. I can't remember. Either way, it's one of those two because it's the only two I really listen to. They said that the wild card, it was the Body Serve. The wild card situation is an unfair advantage for the four countries that have Grand Slams.
I've always thought that.
Well, you're a genius. You said that actually before.
Yeah.
I just discounted it because you said it. But the fact that the U.S. Open has wild cards as a tournament.
Right.
The USTA runs it, and the USTA thinks they're the development arm of all of American tennis.
Yeah.
They're not. Or if they are, maybe that's the reason we're in the state we're in. But they have access to spots in the main draw that they can give to quote-unquote players they deem worthy.
Well, almost everyone is American.
Yeah, exactly. The only ones that aren't are the reciprocal agreements they have with the other three Grand Slam tournaments to let...
Which benefits them even more.
Right. So, because we get Americans into those tournaments.
Right.
So, I think that there ought to be some matrix based on, winning percentage, ranking, whatever the case may be. There ought to be some sort of, concrete mathematic formula.
I got an idea. You're going to love it.
That determines who gets a wild card.
Well, I got an idea that you're going to love, which is
everybody
the team
qualifies?
that wins the Davis Cup this year gets all the wild cards next year and all the slams.
Woo-wee!
Tell me if that makes the countries care about Davis Cup.
No, because Federer doesn't need a wild card.
That's the problem. The best players don't care because they're already getting them.
Right. That's the worst idea I've ever heard.
Maybe you make it a 5-year deal. Make it, if you win this year, you get all the wild cards 5 years from now or whatever.
Well, the bottom line is we have to have a shift in the fact that the actual tournament itself is what matters. The game of tennis matters more than Federer. Federer is not bigger than the game.
Yeah.
How many Grand Slams does Federer have?
20.
20. So he's got 20 trophies that he's received and kissed and fell down on his back, which drives me insane, did a snow angel. Do you know how many champions Wimbledon has? 132. They give out one every year.
Right.
They've got 132.
Just men, you mean?
Yeah, just men. 132 champions. How many women?
Well, I would assume similar.
Probably not. I would assume that because at some point, it doesn't matter.
Right.
My point being is, we were talking about Federer. So,
yeah.
Serena Williams was having we were talking about Federer. He can't win a Wimbledon. Well, I guess in 2019 he might be able to.
Yeah.
So Federer's got 20 Grand Slam championships. Wimbledon itself has 132.
Right.
So right there, he is a percentage of the amount of Wimbledon champions that exist. And so to me, it's hard to say that because you have to balance the growth of the game and popularity and money for these tournaments and all that. But at the same time, how much more integrity is there when Federer's on court 4, the fourth court, the fourth biggest stadium, and an Australian is on the first one, and the Australian's going to fill up too.
Well, and I'll, relate it to something that happened to me recently locally, and I don't even know if I talked to you about this, but I went to coach a ladies team to a match, and we showed up at the club, and the club said that I wasn't allowed to warm up the team. they have a policy, whatever, wasn't allowed to. In the meantime, their team was warming up with their pro and getting ready for the match, and I was furious. I said, "This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard." Could you imagine the Cowboys going to play the Eagles, and the Eagles say, "No, you can't warm up. We're going to warm up while you're in the locker room, and then we'll let you know when it's time to come out for the game." I mean, it's and to me, that's what's happening in these matches. You've got a court that's got a roof, it's got shade, it's got your temperature control, it's got all these different Hawkeye, which the Australian Open finally got on every court this year. But you've got all these now both players get those advantages, but it translates later in the tournament.
Right. If you played all 7 matches on stadium court at 7 p.m. when it's not hot. Yeah. So I just think they lose sight. And again, there's no argument from me that a tournament needs to be able to shift players around based on attendance and popularity in terms of ticket sales. But beyond that, or instead of using that as a crutch to give the best player ever whatever they think he is, all this cush treatment, it's got to change. It's got to stop. And Wildcards is a great place to stop. So how would we determine who gets a wild card? Because the tournament itself, and that's a pretty, long-standing, process. I mean, you are the tournament director. You're in charge of that tournament. Right. But you can't keep Roger Federer out, can you?
Yeah.
So why can you let a number 300 in the world guy in?
Well, I was going to say, should wildcards even exist?
No.
Why isn't it just the top 128 players?
I would say a tournament. So, like golf has tournament exemptions.
Well, the one thing that golf
injury is really the main thing.
But the one thing that golf does for the majors is that, like, if you've won the Masters in the last 20 years, you get in automatically.
Right.
Obviously, for tennis, we don't want Roddick coming back and playing the US Open this year.
With golf, you can't have an unlimited amount of people.
Right.
So
True.
124 get in, but that doesn't mean there's only 124. So if Jack Nicklaus wants to play, he can play.
Right.
And it won't bunt the 124 guy out.
Yeah. Well,
so they'll have, if it's 124 and the only exemption guy that wants to play is Jack Nicklaus, they'll have 125 guys in that tournament.
What I was going to say,
never mind, Michelle, we would have something to say about that.
But you can have a wild card tournament, but how's that any different than qualifying?
It's not.
Because then you could pick, scrubs to play the one you wanted to get in.
So maybe you open up the qualifying that many spots. So so you've got that many qualifying spots, and maybe you have to go to the, how would you determine? Maybe you go to the ATP for the men, the WTA for the women to determine to determine a wild card. So there are no wild cards, but you can use a qualifier spot as an exemption in the case of Serena coming back from her baby, Murray coming back from his hip.
Well, and for that, they already have protected ranking, which makes them qualify for the tournaments anyway.
Well, some.
Right.
But if you didn't, if Serena was out
for Serena,
longer, or if she was out longer and her exemption passed, so there's...
Or frankly, I don't know. I was going to say if some truly, great player came back, and deserved to get in, but again, they had to come back sooner. Sorry, you should have played some of the warm-up tournaments and proved that you deserve to be in it.
Yeah, but I think there are certainly circumstances that would allow themselves to be, this makes sense to have, because we want Serena in this tournament.
Well, I think what you're saying is there's clearly players that get in every slam that didn't deserve to be there.
Correct.
And I think Sock did lose to a wild card, but he was also a wild card. So we had wild card versus wild card in the first round. One of those players won their match, got into the second round by beating a wild card.
And what was I talking about last week? We should have one whole section where it's all wild cards.
And so, but that's kind of ridiculous that both those guys got, rewarded for not being good enough to be in the tournament, to qualify for the tournament.
Yeah. So qualifiers should be randomly placed in all the spots, and there should be only wild cards. Should be rare circumstances where the quote unquote governing bodies of the two tours should make the decision.
Yeah, I think if they chose the wild cards, That would make much more sense. Of course, the tournaments are going to argue, well, we need it to be the local because that draws the attention and draws the fans.
Not at a
in.
Grand Slam.
No.
Absolutely not at a Grand Slam.
No one's going to see American Wildcards.
Not at a tour level event.
Right.
Below the tour level, yes.
Or just give them one. You get one wild card. Do what you want with it. Right now they get like 10. Now I don't know how many they control. They have those reciprocal agreements and all that. But,
yeah.
But I know they at least get 4 or 5. I think there's 8 total.
I mean,
so you have 3 reciprocals and then you have 5.
They should get rid of it. They should just get rid of it. No wild cards altogether. Yeah,
I mean the only time it does make it more interesting for fans is if, like I said, somebody comes out of retirement or somebody comes in, and then it is a point of interest. But again, if they were good enough, they should be able to pass whatever qualification process there was.
Unless they weren't cleared to play until
no, that I understand.
So there. That's why I say there.
I'm saying like Connors when he came back in the 91 and played. But again, he may have just gotten back from injury, like you said, a week before. I don't know.
So yeah, so that would be a way more fair scenario, I think.
Well, remember, Ivan Isavic was the wild card winner of Wimbledon, but that was again an injury situation.
Right. So I do think there can be circumstances where
that's what I'm saying. I don't think you can get rid of it completely, but it definitely shouldn't be country based. That's, I think, your main point.
So no hillbillies can get. Oh, you mean
no tennis sangren?
That's not right.
But anyway, so I did do our simulated draw, which we hadn't talked about yet.
Yeah, you were hesitant to talk about it, and I kind of stayed away from it. But jump on in. Jump on in.
I mean, I think the advantage I have is that I can, advance the seeds through regardless. But the whole point of this was that would it destroy the draw to do it this way or not? Because you're always hoping that the best players advance for the sake of the second week.
Well, and the fact that it worked out doesn't change whether ours would have worked out or yours. I'm gonna make you take the blame for it.
Because meaning the seeded player lost, it's going to destroy the draw regardless of what format you use.
Well, we've also definitely seen it not work out in years past. So just because it worked doesn't mean it's fixed.
But yeah, right. I just advanced the quarters for the men. I've got Djokovic, Anderson, first quarter. 2 top 10 players.
Well, so all right, we'll go ahead. Yeah. All right, go ahead and go through that.
And then I've got Zverev and Edmund. So Edmund's number 13, so he had a little bit easier path. And then Thiem and Federer and Nadal and Cilic. And so again, if any of those players lost before that point, which they obviously did in the real tournament, that can happen anytime. But what I'm saying is the potential quarter was still really high quality, just like it is now.
Yeah, so we have Djokovic is in, and he's playing the 15 seed.
Right.
The 2 seed at the bottom is in, and he's playing. We're talking about in the 4th round or the quarters?
Quarters.
Oh, okay. So Tiafoe, so the 2's in playing Tiafoe, who obviously upset 2-seeded players, including the 5.
So he would have had to beat Zverev in my draw to get to the quarters. Raonic and Zverev.
So he just made him come to the net. And then you have Tsitsipas, who's the 14.
Yeah, and he, in my particular draw, he would have had a tough path.
Right.
Well, he had a tough path anyway.
And the other quarters aren't decided yet.
Right. But so, yeah, what you're seeing is it doesn't, the element of luck still separates the top players enough where you're still going to get high quality, round of 16 quarters semis.
So, all right, so give me so Nadal's playing who?
Nadal and Thiem, I believe.
In teams?
No, Nadal and Cilic, sorry.
And Cilic. So that's on paper a better matchup, except for the fact that based on Tiafoe's finish,
right, he
certainly could have overcome, because that's what we're comparing. We don't have the actual players matched up because obviously it's 2 different draws, but in terms of level, I mean, Tiafoe went through the 5 and the 20. Cilic is a 6.
Right.
So theoretically, he still could have been right where he is, or that level could have been, that match. He could have beaten those 2 players.
Yeah, and our whole argument for using this draw was that it would make the first 2 rounds better. But would it do it at the cost of the later rounds?
Exactly. So, all right, so then the next line up, we've got the 22 seed, Bautista Agut against Tsitsipas. What did you have the next line up?
Second quarterfinal, you mean?
Yep.
Zverev and Edmund.
Technically, it's a fourth quarterfinal because it's on the bottom. But
right. So
you had Edmund and who else?
Zverev.
And Zverev. So
Edmund was 13 seed, which he ended up losing first round in the actual tournament.
Right.
But again, I just went based on ranking here.
So we got a 14 and a 22, so both seeded players.
Right.
And again, Cilic was in that. So Cilic on paper should have made it.
Right.
And played Federer. So Federer, Cilic versus whatever yours was. I mean, actually, yeah, Cilic Federer's better.
And I only had one top 8 player that didn't make it based on this, is what I mean.
Right.
So it didn't destroy the draw. Could it mathematically work out where 5, 6, 7, 8 are all in the same quarter? Of course.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that's tricky.
What are the odds that's going to happen?
So what do you have? So who do you have? Djokovic playing in the fourth round?
Anderson.
So he's playing Anderson, which is better than a Medvedev on paper.
But again, Anderson lost in the real draw.
Right.
That's
but he also lost to somebody who's in the quarters.
Right.
So, so then who do you have? Nishikori in that next?
I've got the other one I haven't mentioned is Thiem and Federer.
Oh, so Thiem and Federer. So Federer is in the fourth round also. Wow. Yeah. And then what about that Raonic line? So Zverev somewhere else, so he's in.
Well, yeah. So I've listed all mine. I've got Novak, Anderson, Edmund, Zverev, Thiem, Federer, and Nadal, Cilic. Those are my final 8.
I got you.
And so that's like I said, 7 of the top 8. So one of the top 8 players got screwed by having to play. Djokovic and Nishikori had to play each other in the round of 16 in mine.
Right.
So he gets a worse. So one of the top 8 players got a worse draw than he would have normally.
And this is an uncharacteristically good draw.
Right.
Right now.
Yeah.
All right. How about the woe man?
So I've got Halep and Muguruza.
Well, let's start at the bottom because those are already done. So your 2 seed, our 2 seed was Kerber.
Right.
And she is out to unseeded Collins. So
yeah. So I had Kerber and Kvitova in mine. And so obviously if Kerber lost, ironically in mine, Collins had a terrible draw. But she, did beat the number 2 player in the world.
I was going to say, technically she had a terrible draw here.
She actually would have had, in mine, she would have beat Muguruza and Ostapenko just to get to the round of 16.
All right, so that bottom quarterfinal is Danielle Collins, who beat Kerber, so Kerber wouldn't be there anyway.
Right.
And Pavlyuchenkova. Good Lord. And,
she's been the up-and-comer for 5 years.
Yeah. And then Ashe Party and Kvitova are the next one up. So in this draw, they're the 8 and the 15. So
right.
Who do you have in the second from the bottom quarter?
So whoever the top, second from the bottom. So that would be Wozniacki and Streetsova. So that's kind of my dud quarterfinal that I've got. Because Streetsova was the highest seeded person in that area for me.
Yeah, but Wozniacki, she would have made it. She would have been.
Right. And so no matter what draw you do, you could have 2 unseeded players because people beat people.
Well, we do. We have 2 in the same match in the bottom quarterfinal. So, for Americans, first of all, the fact that Stevens lost to Pavlyuchenkova changes that for America, but I don't think it changes it for anybody else in the world. Nobody cares about Stevens outside that she's the 5 seed.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's actually a shame for Collins because now that match will barely even be talked about. Whereas Collins and Stevens, that would have been
huge.
A feature. They'll show it. It'll be the first match on probably tomorrow on Tennis Channel, but it won't be nearly as big as it would have been.
All right, so the next one up, we've got the 2 seeds. We got the potential Svitolina and Osaka meeting in the second from the top quarter. So who do you have from the second from the top quarter?
I've got Osaka and Serena, which obviously would be a big match.
Yeah, that's a really big match.
Although for the real draw, it would be Osaka and Serena in the semis, which would be more beneficial for the tournament. They'd rather have that in semis than the quarters.
Well, and that's Serena's fault for being the 16 seed,
right?
Not the tournaments. In either case, so really, it makes more sense the way you did it because she is the 16 seed. All right, so that's a gangbuster of a quarter though.
Right.
And who do you have? So you got Halep.
Yeah, I've got Halep and Muguruza.
Muguruza, okay. And again, that's they have Muguruza, Pliska. We, the actual reality. is 18-7. So Pliskova and Muguruza to face Halep or Williams.
Right. And so, it worked out,
That actually works out worse because if they're trying to keep the best players away from each other, having Williams seeded 16, puts her in that spot to play the 1 in the 4th round.
And I think the way they're doing it now, why wouldn't they, because like we've talked about, giving the top players an advantage, why wouldn't you reseed every round if you're going to do that? Like, they go to that extreme.
Ooh.
And
that's fancy.
I mean, but if they're going to do that, like, that's basically what they're doing already. Why wouldn't you take it all the way to the end?
Ooh, that is or, maybe the first 3 rounds,
right,
or the first 4 rounds go through like it is, and then reseed.
Right.
That is fancy.
Because maybe you lose 2 of the top. Because like sometimes it works out where, well, like in this instance, I think Djokovic aren't Djokovic at all in the same half or no? I think they are.
I'm off the men now. Here.
But like it, what I mean by that is many times it works out where one semi is really
Federer and Nadal.
They were,
yeah.
But sometimes it works out where one semi is really interesting, and one is not. You'd rather be able to separate those 2 players in the second week if you could, knowing that your tournament could be over in the semis potentially. Huh. I'm just saying, why wouldn't they do that? Is what I mean. Right.
If that's their intent,
right?
Then. Right.
So I think
from our
intent, way, it makes more sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're gonna worry about integrity of the draw and competitive balance and all that, if you're gonna work on do favoring the best players and getting the best matches at the end, you want to do what they're doing.
Right. And I'm telling you, this 4 seed situation, the only reason I would say 8 is because we have a big 3.
Right.
So the next grouping downs keep them apart.
Yeah.
But when Federer and Djokovic, well, actually, if it's just Djokovic and Federer and Nadal retire, Delpo out, he'll retire, Cilic may, then why wouldn't we have just 4? Because
one of the slams is going to 16 this year. I can't remember. I think it's Wimbledon.
I sure hope so.
16, I can understand.
It's better.
32, I never understood why they went to it to begin with.
Because that 1-to-4 ratio.
Just to keep better players in longer.
I guess, yeah.
But I would like to actually do the research on that. I mean, I'm not going to, but to see if it actually...
You would like somebody call in if you've done the research on that.
But I would be curious to know if it's actually made a difference in the top 16 seeds staying in the tournament longer once they went to 32 versus 16. Right. I bet it hasn't made much of a difference.
Right.
This is one of the best tournaments we've ever had in terms of seeded players.
That's the other thing. We're comparing the draw that is actual, and done the way every other Grand Slam has done it for the last however many years. This just happens to be one of the best draws with the best results on the men's side anyway, and we're still pretty comparative.
I'm hard pressed to think of a first week of a slam as good as this one.
This one or yours.
Well, right, which makes me wonder what week 2 and how it can live up to that. Because there's been so many things to talk about, and it makes me poised for a letdown, unfortunately, in the second week.
Right. Good stuff. What about the women? How do we think your draw compared to theirs? Comparable also, right?
Yeah. Like I said, Serena, Osaka, for a semifinal, Halep, Muguruza, for a quarterfinal, those are pretty big.
All right, week 2. So that's really the thing I'm looking for is comparing the matches now and how they match, how the quality is.
Right.
Because Kerber playing like she played is a huge letdown for any tennis fan. Because I want to see Danielle Collins win, but she could drug every opponent she has before, put a little something in their drink and have them all groggy and beat them the same way. But that's not the right way to win. You know what I mean? I want to see competitive matches, and that was not.
Well, and I'm not going to ask you for specific predictions, but what in general do you want to see in week 2, and what do you think we're going to see in week 2?
Well, and this, please don't, tweet at me or whatever you do, but I am hoping that some of these players can step up and fend off Serena. In all honesty, her run to the U.S. Open was kind of disappointing to me, not because of her, but because she's not who she was before she had a child. You know what I mean? I mean, how can you possibly be?
And she hasn't been challenged thus far.
But the thing that doesn't bother me about it, like it would on the men's side, is that I think she is without question of any era, and she is crossed over multiple eras. Unquestionably, the greatest women's player ever, right. And so we actually have a bar set, and that's all right. Whereas on the men's side, there is no bar because everybody below the big three suck. So I guess maybe I'm talking myself out of my own argument. But it would be impressive to see that if people can step up and handle her, then at least when she does decide to pass the baton off, it'll be like, oh, okay, there's some deserved people. Because on the men's side so far, I don't know if there is. And even with the next gen, they're just by age. I mean, if they were 10 years younger,
right,
they wouldn't even face Federer in them, so you couldn't even say it. But if they were 10 years older, they'd been right in the teeth of it.
Right.
So would they be pushing them? Because regardless of them being in the prime, the fact that people are saying they're not in their prime now even proves my point even more, that they're not in their prime, they're still 1, 2, and 3.
Right, exactly. And I think here's what we always want to see at the end of these slams is a top player playing a up and coming player, and the up and coming player not getting thrashed.
Right.
Even in the final, to even get to the final was amazing because that hasn't happened much. But could you imagine if we had I know it doesn't work out in the terms of where they are in the draws, but I'd love to see a Serena, Collins, for example. Collins isn't necessarily young and up and coming, but she's up and coming, and then a Tsitsipas Djokovic.
Right, exactly.
Or even a Zverev Djokovic.
And I would be happy with those both as semis.
Right.
Because semis are close enough to say, wow, you really did some damage at this tournament.
So you'd be happy if TFO made the semis and Tsitsipas made the semis, but they both lost to Nadal and Djokovic.
Yeah, in 4 sets.
Right.
In 4 good sets.
Because then you say there's light on the horizon.
Well, then you have
light at the end of the tunnel.
You have that scenario where great player getting older, young player coming into their own.
Right. It should have happened 5 years ago.
Exactly. Exactly. This transition should have happened 5 years ago if this era didn't suck.
Right.
So, exactly. So that's what it's supposed to look like. And hopefully, that's actually, you just put it the best way. That's the best way to describe what I've been trying to describe in terms of the next gen skipping over the next gen.
Right.
And then the old guys, retiring. But again, on the women's side, it's just different. Serena is Roger Federer, but there's no question in terms of the competition she's faced throughout her career.
Right.
Whereas I do feel there is, again, Andy Roddick. I mean, he's been Federer's biggest competition throughout his career, and he's been retired for who knows how many years. So Serena's different in the sense that I don't doubt her level.
Right.
So.
Well, yeah, she's has to play so many multiple-time Grand Slam champions. And again, I'm not the one that made Grand Slam titles the end-all, be-all of, ranking great players. That's, what the world has determined is the number one. So how can you say that Federer is so great when he's beating so many players that have won none?
Not the world.
Yeah.
These players. I mean, honestly, when Federer skips an entire clay season because he wants to focus on Wimbledon, he's not focusing on Holla. Holla. He's focusing on Wimbledon. He's focused on U.S. Open. He's focused on Australian. So it's also the players that have done this as well, a little bit. And we in the media, I'm not saying we're media, but we as fans, media fall into the trap. But I 100% agree with you. I mean, the overall wins.
Well, and if Djokovic wins 2 slams this year, and let's say Federer and Nadal win 0, and I had to fill out at the end of the year.
Say that again?
Let's say Djokovic wins 2 slams.
Yep.
And Federer and Nadal win none. So whoever wins the other 2 doesn't matter. And you ask me at the end of the year who is the greatest player of all time, would be more likely to say Djokovic than Federer at that point.
Right.
And again, it's going to be 20-16 or whatever it is, but Djokovic has had to beat Nadal and Federer his entire career.
Right.
Federer and Nadal won a lot against,
without him.
So that's the complete opposite of the argument that person sent in of, Federer being to pass his prime when Djokovic won. I think it's the opposite. I think Federer and Nadal got the luxury of having to build up, win some against nobodies, the Monfils and the Berdiches and the Ferrers and the Tsongas, Gasquets of the world, whereas Djokovic just had to do them all against Federer, Nadal, and Murray.
Right. So Jimmy Connors has the all-time match wins right now, and he's...
God, that's amazing that Federer doesn't have that.
Well,
record.
Jimmy Connors has 1,256. Now, the years active was 1970 to 1996. But
God, he played to 96.
But it wasn't even real.
That must have been like a couple
doubles,
right.
Or he must have been horsing around.
Because 91 was his U.S. Open, and that's considered like his last tournament.
Yeah, and he had no chance to win that.
Right.
So that's a good
true doubles, I guess, is factored in there.
No, I think this is
singles?
This is singles.
Wow.
So if you factor in 91 as being Connors' kind of last year,
right.
That's 21 years on the Pro Tour, and that's what 2019 will be for Roger Federer is 21 years.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so it kind of apples to apples, I guess, as much as you can.
Right.
And Jimmy Connors has 73 more wins than Federer.
And with there being way more tournaments available now to play,
I would think so, yeah.
Federer's gonna. I don't know.
That's a lot, man.
Because on a normal year,
he's playing clay this year,
supposedly. Because on a normal year, he probably wins 40 or 50 matches now with his limited schedule he's playing.
Yeah, that's true.
So he'd have to play
maybe 3 years.
Yeah,
3 more years to catch Jimmy Connors.
Well, yeah, he's got to win all those matches. Yes,
and win them all. Right. Yeah, obviously. Well, we assume that because he can't play Novak in every single first round.
Yeah, I think he breaks that record because I think when it gets close, it starts to become a topic. So then, he may not care about it right now, but I think by the end of the year, when he's within 20, 30, he maybe cares about it and tries to go for it.
Yeah, could be.
And then we have to hear about that for 6 months.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think he'd hang on being 30 in the world to do it, though. Do you?
No, but I've heard him say that he wants to play at the Olympics next year. So that's a year and a half, and he's not just he's gonna play the slams for sure, and he can win 4 or 5 matches in a slam.
True.
If he wins 4 or 5 matches in the next 6 slams, that's 30 wins.
Right.
So he's halfway there, and he's gonna play Indian Wells, Miami, those kind of things.
Right. Yeah, and he'll definitely get out into the third round of those minimum.
Right.
Interesting. All right. What a varied day in terms of topics. But good stuff, though. And, man, glad to be back in this studio behind this mic. I was awful. Let me apologize to all the people that listened to that broadcast. It was not good on my part. You did fantastic.
It was wonderful.
Craig did well. I was horrific. But, hey, like I said, compared to my first podcast here on The Revolution, I think it's gotten better. Maybe the fans don't think so. But.
And we were sitting inside watching pretty good level of tennis on a terrible weather day. So
that's true. At least we didn't have to deal with the gale force winds and the wind chill below freezing.
Yeah, if that was an outdoor broadcast, I
would have quit tennis. I would have applied to become a basketball coach.
That's right.
Indoors. So anywho, all right. I guess that draw technically was your corner, huh?
That was.
I like it.
Are you taking Serena to win it here? SW24, as Brad Gilbert would say.
No.
Nope.
But I am taking Djokovic.
Oh, well, we're both taking Djokovic. We know.
All right. With that.
Oh, wait, one last thing.
Oh, Lord.
I got to ask this question they asked, which I didn't think I thought was an easy decision. They said if you could choose 2 things to pick, this will be my shortened corner. Would you bet on
not allowed to bet
the big 3 to win all 4 slams, or anybody else to win 1?
Isn't that exactly the poll question I put out months ago?
No, I thought it was Djokovic to win all 4.
Yeah, but what's the difference?
Well,
they've
copied us on that, and they copied us on. They're using UTR rankings to predict matches. Did you see that?
Yeah, So we might not officially be in control of pro tennis, but behind the scenes, obviously, we know who's driving it. Mine was even more difficult of a choice. A Novak Grand Slam, so he wins all four, or a next-genner winning, or anybody not in the big three winning.
Oh, see, I didn't realize yours was anyone but the big three. Yeah,
it wasn't Nadal or Federer.
Right.
It was Djokovic Grand Slam or next-genner.
Next gen. Well, see, so that's a little different.
No. 4 and below the world. So Novak all 4, or anybody except the big three.
And we said Novak, didn't we?
I did.
Yeah. And that's what they said on TV.
If you're smart, you would say what I said.
That's what they said on TV. They said they would sooner pick the big three to win all of them.
Who asked that question?
It was either Cahill or Goodall, one of the foreign accent.
That's it, man.
But they agreed with us, but again, they can't say it's because everybody else sucks. They're saying, because these guys are so great.
Yeah, exactly.
And that doesn't change with Federer being out. That doesn't change your.
I've already conceded that it's a combination of both. I've already conceded that the big three could be arguably the greatest ever in whatever order. But I'm also saying that the rest of the field is weak. Nobody else wants to say that.
But I'm saying having Federer out of this tournament doesn't change your...
No.
Because Tsitsipas isn't beating Federer or Djokovic at all.
Right.
Even beating 2 of them would be amazing.
Well, Djokovic, nobody's beating Djokovic. That's all there is to it.
I don't think... I see Nadal and Djokovic as a clear... pick to go to the finals right now, and I'm not seeing anybody that can stop it.
All right, we need to get out of here. People are going to see how long this thing is and just throw their phone in the garbage. All right, well, that was a good little tidbit to add at the end because it basically made me right. So I'll take those anytime. So nothing else?
That's it.
Fantastic. I got great news. This is a real tidbit. We've got a new place you can listen.
Uh-oh.
And you'll never guess where. Your basement. No.
The Walkman.
We are now, after much consternation and cursing at my computer, we are now on YouTube. So you just go to YouTube and search Tennis Revolution, and we're like the 15th thing that comes up. But we're there. So you can go to YouTube. There is no video, so you don't get to see Corey's dashing good looks. It's just we converted the audio to a video somehow. And again, I don't know how. So Tennis Revolution into the search box, and we're the 3rd thing up. There we go.
Moving up already.
So tell all your friends, and everybody has access. Everybody uses YouTube. Not everybody podcasts.
That's true.
Just because you're listening out there doesn't mean anybody else cares about what you're doing. Podcasting is still kind of a underground kind of thing, but it is.
Well, on YouTube,
it's the future.
You can use pretty much any method to get on YouTube.
That too, exactly. So check us out on all other forums, but spread the word. Please spread the word on YouTube because the bigger YouTube gets, the more it'll feed itself, and people will listen and view and do all the view technically, even though they're only listening. So
can we compile all our views from every different medium we're available on now?
No idea how. I can't.
I think we're up to the billions now.
I can barely hit record on this thing. So, all right, so that's it. Do all the things you normally do. Spread the word on all the different formats. Oh, the bag. I got to pick a winner. I'm going to do that next week.
All right.
Nobody else is tweeting out that picture anymore. I might resend it one more time.
Strain up and wrap up show.
There it is.
And the giveaway.
That's it. Remind me next week. So that's it. So until next time, thanks for joining the revolution.
Bye, guys.
Bye, Federer.